Some things are destined to decay, but the secret to immortality is all about genes. That's why giants are busy creating humans to ensure their genes carry on. At this time, the companions suddenly fired, but bullets didn't harm the giant. He killed them with one punch. The short-haired guy was soon defeated too. Subtitles: only Sean remains now, his survival instincts fled early. Unexpectedly, the giant went to the control panel, not chasing him. The circular platform started rising, revealing a control cabin. Looks like the giant set to unleash black goo on Earth, wiping out all life. As the giant made his moves, the spaceship's true form unveiled itself, and it looked ready for lift. The shockwave threw Sean outside. He saw the ground cracking. The giant ship was powering up. He yelled, "Hurry, we're taking off." Vix didn't care at all, urging the captain to return to Earth quickly. However, after careful thought, the captain made a brilliant decision. He aimed to halt the giant ship by all means. The Prometheus, a mere research vessel, lacked combat power, so he used it as a weapon. He ordered others to flee via escape pods. 2 co-pilots unexpectedly insisted on fighting with him to the end. The 3 of them piloted the Prometheus as it took off, while the giant ship had already lifted off, leaving the Prometheus to chase at full speed. Just before the trio released together, a thunderous roar echoed. The Prometheus shattered into fragments, while the giant ship flew on unharmed. However, as Sean and Vix fled, the giant ship plummeted faster than they could. Suddenly, Sean made a slick turn and narrowly escaped, but poor Vix wasn't so lucky. He got squished into a pan. The ship stopped rolling at last. Sean sighed in relief, but found it toppling again. He had nowhere to escape. He watched in horror as the ship crashed toward him, but a rock behind saved him. Yet, danger lingered. His helmet cracked, with only 2 minutes of oxygen left. Sean hurried to the life pod for supplies, only to hear some noise inside. He grabbed an axe, ready for some adventure. To his shock, the monster he created survived and grew several times larger in just 2 days. Before he realized, David, the survivor, sent a notice. Before Sean could ask who, the wounded giant seized him. In an emergency, Sean promptly opened the medical pod. The ravenous monster immediately latched onto the giant, giving Sean a chance to escape, unaware that the black goo they created was a deadly weapon. Giants were devoured in the blink of an eye, leaving Sean as the only survivor among the 17 crew members. He then sought out the battered David. Only David could pilot the other giant spacecraft. However, Sean was no longer interested in going back to Earth. He desperately wanted to know why the giants aimed to destroy humanity. So, they powered up another giant ship. They flew to the giant's home, and where Sean was heading in to end the suffering. The film omits the cause of destruction, humanity escaping the giant's grasp. They were simply dissatisfied with their own creations, so they decided to wipe it all out. After leaving, they thought this planet was lifeless for good. However, the swallowed giant broke free suddenly. The next second, the ground split, revealing Dick, the legendary xenomorph ancestor. Meanwhile, Sean and David swiftly reached the giant's home. The spaceship glided into the spaceport, and the unsuspecting giants thought their nights were returning, only to be met by the descent of hell, as thousands of gallons of the giants began dissolving in midair, and those who sensed something was wrong desperately tried to escape, but they had no chance. The black goo surged in like a tidal wave, leaving no escape. They invaded their home like locusts, wiping out all life in their path. Who could imagine advanced beings would face their own demise, destroyed by weapons of their making? Yet the tale continues. 50 years on, humans revisit the giant's world. A man inadvertently stepped on a pile of horse manure, and that step sealed his fate. Oblivious, he was still leisurely blowing smoke rings. Suddenly, black crystals in the air seemed to come alive, swimming toward his ear and quickly piercing his skin. At first, he just felt an itch in his ear and thought nothing of it, but soon he was sweating profusely, his face as pale as a ghost. His buddy Karen noticed something was off, notified the captain, and quickly rushed the man back to base. This short distance seemed impossible for the man, and he ended up coughing up blood, prompting Karen to drag him along. The man believed he could stop the spread of his condition by getting back to the ship, completely unaware that things were far worse than they imagined. By the time they got the man to the medical bay, Forrest immediately ripped off his shirt, only to be stunned by what he saw. Something seemed to be growing on the man's back, and Forrest hastily made an excuse to bolt, only to lock the door behind him. Karen was puzzled, urging him to open the door, but to prevent the spread of infection, Forrest had no choice but to refuse. The next moment, the man began convulsing violently, and Karen, wanting to help, approached, but suddenly something pierced her hand. Karen completely lost her mind, screaming to open the door, while Forrest stood frozen in shock at what he saw. Something burst through the man's back, and a few seconds later, it started drilling into the hole, giving birth to a xenomorph. Karen completely lost it, while Forrest fled the scene, ignoring her desperate pleas. Left with no choice, Karen pulled out a small knife to defend herself, but the xenomorph didn't seem to care at all. The next moment, it lunged at her face, and when Forrest returned, Karen was lying in a pool of blood, struggling. Panicked, he quickly targeted but missed several shots, then shot wildly in frustration. Unexpectedly, he hit the mailbox, resulting in not only his own demise but also the loss of the entire ship. Then the captain arrived, but he was too late, helplessly watching wife Can die in the fire. He never expected just to lead 2,000 colonists. He aimed to find a planet quickly, but things took a wild turn. Just days before, the ship encountered a neutrino burst. The ship suffered damage and the inside was disrupted, forcing the robot Walter to awaken the sleeping crew early. The captain died before emerging due to sleep chamber malfunction, making way for the new captain. However, strange things soon unfolded. Just as Reynolds stepped out, Tennessee's helmet unexpectedly picked up a piercing. After discovering the source, the crew was shocked to find it's a pop song. They couldn't figure out why there were signs of humanity in outer space. Even more exciting, the signal came from a potentially habitable planet, and it was closer than the original destination. Instantly, the crew was on board, eager to head to this planet, though Danny felt a lingering unease, but he had no choice. A few days later, the spaceship arrived at the new destination, and aside from Reynolds and his two companions, the rest of the crew boarded the lander, expecting a hopeful journey. They didn't expect a hellish one-way trip. The lander hit a huge storm upon entry, but flew smoothly after passing the atmosphere and landed by a lake. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories.